Welcome, everyone. I'm here with Henrietta and Savannah. Today, we are going to talk about an interesting phenomenon. When you're going through life and you're chasing, pursuing, anxiety, stress, whatever, these are the normal feelings that most people are feeling. But what about when you feel that state of success? When you're excited, one, what do you do next? And two, why does feeling good feel out of place? Henrietta, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thank you. It's an excellent topic. So I studied the biological and psychological mechanisms of this as a neuroscientist. And the most important part is that the brain has a reward system, including the neurotransmitter dopamine, which gives us a sense of excitement. And it's more active during the anticipation of the reward than the actual achievement of it. So this is very important, the anticipation. So when we are working on a goal, the brain releases dopamine each time we make a plan and progress, because this is how motivation is generated literally biochemically. But once we actually complete the project, these dopamine levels tend to drop, and with that, the sense of excitement tend to decrease as well. Then the brain moves into a sort of what's next state, which can leave us feeling, at least some people, strangely deflated. And so actually it's interesting that some people experience happiness and others more like an empty feeling. I am more the kind who tend to experience the empty feeling and what's next, because it's like never enough. So I think it varies a bit between people. So of course, it's more complex than this mechanistically and biologically, but these are some of the key aspects of the biology that explain why we have those feelings. So they're related to the dopamine system and the reward system.
Yeah, in terms of like the VC ecosystem and like just seeing entrepreneurs going through this, when they're starting a company, they get really excited. They find a co-founder, they hire out a team, and they get those constant hits of dopamine like you're talking about. And then once they sell the company, they exit, then they just drop. And then there's that feeling of like, okay, well, do I start another company? Do I restart? That's a lot of work. Or do I just take my money that I've made through my exit and like have a great time? Do I go on vacation? But you're right, like they're constantly seeking the dopamine and they're going to find it like one way or the other. And it's good to be anticipating that when you're going through the journey of being an entrepreneur and constantly getting those hits of dopamine and then knowing what you're going to do next after that. Like, are you going to pick up a new hobby? Or are you going to pick up like maybe traveling the world with your family? But it's good to anticipate it so that you can plan out your life, like your 2, 5, and 10-year plan accordingly so that you don't have the deflated feeling and not know what to do next.
Yeah, and this is actually because some people are more, there is a biological predisposition to this. Some people are more prone to experiencing this empty feeling than others. It's related to the novelty seeking and people who like taking risks and basically new projects, generating new things. But, and so in this context, for those of us who have this background, it's actually very ideal to work on startups, because then that's the whole point, to start something new, work on it for a few years. It doesn't have to be forever. So it's an ideal career.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's really important for people to realize the biochemical part as we merge it with kind of like what our goals are in life. A lot of people are just chasing one thing, right? And like Savannah's saying, like when people reach that end, that exit, that stock market, and people talk about how they'll like end up crying. They're like, this is what I worked for. I rang the bell and I worked for this, and like now I'm crying, right? So, and they're like, they have this emptiness feeling, right? I think it's really valuable hearing like, the Henrietta side of things, where it's like the biochemical part of it, right? Like we're building up dopamine all the way through, and then like you can feel an emptiness, and that can change based on like your DNA or your structures or whatever. But also then like, what do we want to do in terms of like gratitude? What do we want to do per person in terms of setting our next goals? What do we want to do even precursor to meeting those goals, and say, look, why would I stress, pressure, go all the way to this goal thinking that that's like the thing that I want, when actually we're a species of motion. This is going to be an infinite continuum. Imagine your life like an infinite continuum of lots of things that you're doing. Don't keep thinking of your life in terms of like, when I get that relationship, I'll be happy and I'll just coast. When I get that money, I'll be happy and I'll coast. When I get that status or that company done, I'll be happy and I'll coast, because that's not what's going to happen like logically for you or biochemically for you. Too many people, they do go out into retirement and then they come back because they're like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah, and in this context, it's also very important to, I always find it interesting, helpful to remember this, that there is biology behind it, but also to use how we use that information, and to work on our lifestyles as well, because we also is always to keep the long-term goals in sight, because that will then, in that way, we will never, hopefully never lose that sense of motivation. And also develop a healthy and balanced lifestyle. And I know that Jeremy liked to talk about about balancing business with fun and all that. So I'm on the same page with that. I think it's very important because in that, if you don't do that, many people who don't do that, they keep chasing these dopamine spikes on and on and on, and it most often leads to really serious problems such as addictions, depression, and even worse. And so it can crash the business eventually. So it's important. The health and lifestyle is very important.
Yeah, I think it's a really important conversation to just realize that you're based on design of the cellular structures. People are going to keep chasing. People are going to keep pursuing at different rates. Yes. At different desires and varieties. Yes. But people are going to always keep moving. And so we need to take that into account so that we can be healthy with it, so that we can be aware of the dilution rates of each thing. You're going to do something a lot and then you're going to dilute and you're going to want the next thing. It's that novelty seeking. And so to realize that we're on that pendulum allows us to kind of slow down and enjoy each moment as opposed to just rush through it, burn through it, and move on. If you want to move passionately fast, yes, but not stressfully fast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about enjoying the dopamine as you get the spikes along the way. And like once you understand that, then you can really enjoy the building process of building a company, doing a hobby, like whatever you're doing in your personal professional life. It makes it much more enjoyable because then also if you know your dilution rates, you can choose your dose and interval per day, per week, per month to make sure that you're just capitalizing on your time and your efforts and not diluting too fast, making sure that you enjoy the whole process all the way through, and then also enjoy the process after you sell your company, IPO, whatever you're going to do afterwards, so that you have like a long and fulfilled life.
Yeah, I think expecting this ahead of time is really, really important for people. Expect that your dopamine is going to change. Expect that when you reach this goal, when you reach that relationship, that money, whatever, that your feeling is going to change. And so you can continue to do the next things without feeling like what you chased and got is nothing. It's not nothing. You getting that thing just because it feels maybe a little more empty and it feels like you want to go do the next thing, which makes it feel like that's a nothing. That was still a thing that you enjoyed pursuing and getting, and you also are going to want to keep going. So I think just looking at that expectation.
Yeah, and also many people who don't realize that what's behind this, they tend to think that it will help them feel better if they add more and more and more projects. In businesses, we have a tendency to always want to achieve very high level of goals, and so, but it can be very extremely counterproductive, and people can reach that point when it's very hard to go back to a healthy state before they realize, if they are not aware of this. And so one thing that is a good idea not to do is to actually stack activities that are this so-called high risk, high reward, and basically just being on all the time. So that's why balance, and so it's balancing it with social life and whatever we like, but also resting, simply activities that don't provide this excitement all the time, because that's stacking. That's usually not healthy, because the dip on the other side tends to be much more negative and much more uncomfortable and even devastating potentially.
Yeah, I think it's really important because it's like to realize that everything is relative. No matter how much you stack the novelty, the activities, the travels, the experiences, it's always relative. You're going to start to numb out to a degree, dilute on that, and get used to a certain interval. So we have to do it with this awareness of like, what does the interval of your dopamine hits, of your excitements, whatever, what does that interval look like over a 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year? You don't want to have it spike up heavy and then spike down. And if you know there's spots between when you're going to get some sort of novelty or interesting thing of an hour, of 5 hours, of 5 weeks, whatever, like you have to be aware of that and anticipate that. And that can be calculated. But that's for a deeper conversation there. But nonetheless, I think that's, super valuable. Thank you both for chatting today.
Thanks.
Thank you.